Kerri, we have been walking in the same circles for a long time, so I'm so glad that we actually have a minute to talk versus just, hey, how you doing? I'm gonna go get a
Yeah.
drink at most events. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I think you're one of the like a perfect guest to have on here, but I'm gonna go ahead and have you first talk about what it is that you do.
Yes. So I own Mollard Consulting. We're a nonprofit consulting firm. And I started the company, Catherine, you won't believe this, in 2003.
Wow.
22 years of
Oh
being a
my
small
gosh.
business owner. I know.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big
So
deal.
it is a big deal. And we've grown, exponentially, especially since 23. The last 2 years, the team has grown, the client base has grown.
That's
But
so great.
yeah, 2 decades of being a small business owner. So, but love it. Love every day of it.
That is fantastic. And just so people are aware, what would your ideal client be?
Oh, that's such a good question. So most of our clients are nonprofits. Some of our clients are also for-profits where they have us come in and train their executives on how to be a nonprofit board member.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and that's I'll tell you more about that piece of our work too. But ultimately, the ideal client for us is not budget size or staff size or what part of the sector they fall in. My and our team's favorite client is the client that is willing to learn. Like it for us, when we can have a thought partnership, right? And the client is really engaged in helping us solve for X, and we can come in and have that constructive partnership. It is just magic, right? Like they're willing to learn, we're willing to learn, and we just go. And so it could be a startup, little tiny nonprofit. It can be $100 million a year, highly established nonprofit. It could be one of our for-profit partners, but the client willing to learn is the most fun work.
I think you may have added a bullet point to everybody's definition of what their ideal client is. Because we think we know, but yeah, you add that on there, and that's kind of a game changer.
Oh, it's a game changer. And I'm sure you have over time seen this. The client who comes in kind of just to check the box. Yep. All right, let's
Yeah,
hire
I
them.
need
We need
this.
a
Let's go.
strategic,
Yep.
we need a strategic plan. Hey, people, can you put a plan together? Or, a donor said we have to have a campaign feasibility study before we launch a campaign. And they don't really want to dive into the work. They're checking a
Yeah.
box because some stakeholder, some funder, some board member said you should have X, fill in the blank. And those clients are painful. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
they don't really want to know what our analysis is.
Right.
They don't really want to listen to recommendations. And they don't really want to come into it as a partnership. They're seeing it as a transaction. And, Catherine, too from all your work, the most meaningful work is based on relationships, not on
Yes.
transactions.
That's where I was going to go too. It's like
Yeah,
you're bringing somebody in, and they have to be a part of the team, So it just cannot be just do the work, and
right,
I don't want to have my hands in this whatsoever. It's
right.
otherwise I would imagine a lot of your work could just sit on somebody's desk.
Exactly.
Give a report or an analysis, and like, okay, thanks, then that's it. It just sits
Right.
there.
And life is too short. Like,
Right.
right? I don't want to do work that isn't meaningful, right? No one on our team wants to do that.
Now you said like in the last 2 years, business has surged a little bit.
Yeah.
What has changed?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So we have seen kind of a post-pandemic surge. So, right,
Interesting.
so many of our clients had to hunker down. I mean, the whole world hunkered down
Yeah.
and had to deal with the acute situation that was COVID. And what we started to see in 23 was coming out of that acute triage and like starting to breathe again, wanting to plan again,
Hmm.
wanting to grow again, like right that came out of the crisis. And so we just had this surge. I also think, and again, you know this so well from all of the work you've done in your career, over time, all of the brand building that we do pays off in time, right? It isn't a quick hit.
Yep.
And so it felt like, we had our big 20th anniversary celebration. The world was coming out of COVID and wanting to plan and grow and learn and do again.
Hmm.
And all of the work, especially in the board governance space that we have been just doing, all the thought leadership work we had been putting out was all just kind of coming together, and we were able to meet the moment. Um, but now in 2025, there's another inflection point with pulling back on spending,
Mm-hmm.
um, actual loss of funding for many of our clients, the
Correct.
fear of loss of funding for many of our clients, and even our for-profit partners, hey, we're tightening our belt right now. So, now we're in a moment of contraction again. We'll see how long this current phase lasts, but kind of the unpredictability is causing a lot of fear. But ultimately, the board governance work that we do, the fundraising analysis work that we do, the strategic planning work that we do matters. And
Yeah.
organizations need that now, especially when they're navigating the larger macro factors that we're all living with,
I'm going to go ahead and say, I think people need you now more than ever.
right?
Because at times like this, you do need a plan and you do
Oh,
need help navigating because when the rules change, it's like you're just sailing along and it's like, well, I know exactly what I need to do. And then somebody says, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
right,
Yeah, then what? And we
right,
have to remember that. And I give people grace in being in those positions because it is hard work. And, you're not expected to know everything, and that's where your company can come in and be that person that kind of guides them too. You get to be
right.
the leader of that organization, but do call in help when needed. And this is a time where people, I think, do need help.
Yeah.
You did talk about a little bit, kind of like set it up, where we will
Yeah.
talk about your training employees to be on nonprofit boards. What does
Yeah.
that involve? Because that's really kind of cool.
Oh, it's so
And
fun.
nonprofit boards are usually the gateway for people to get on like paid boards and things like that.
Right,
So,
right,
yes.
right, right. So Catherine, I'll ask you this question since we're both in Central Ohio. How many nonprofits do you think are in Central Ohio?
Oh my gosh. Hundreds. There's probably a lot.
17,000.
Whoa. All right. I should have said thousands, but wow.
Seven just here in Central Ohio.
That's insane.
It's insane. Right? But every one of
But
those,
I love that all this good work is being done, but
right?
wow.
Wow, right? And every nonprofit board, right? For the IRS to say, hey, yes, you are a nonprofit tax exempt organization, you must have a board. Um, the IRS has a minimum of 3 people. So a minimum of 3 people times 17,000. And most boards are bigger than that. It's
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of people in Central Ohio are on boards. That's just our little community. And so, yes, we've been investing so much in board governance. And we're now really ratcheting up the level of training we're doing. I'll give you a quick story as to why we spend so much time on board governance. So earlier in Mollard Consulting's life, going back at least 12 years, almost 15 years ago, we would get calls from clients saying, can you help us with fundraising, right? Can you help us with strategic planning? And, we go in like, sure, and we'd get in and we'd be like, oh, you're having a hard time raising money because your board chair and your chief executive aren't talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got a toxic board member, and so everybody else is checked out because that guy is a bully.
Yeah.
And so we just saw over time, whoa, if you can fix the issues at the top, right? Leadership matters. If you can solve for the governance issues, then fundraising, strategic planning, program evaluation, meeting the needs of the community is easier
Yes.
and more successful. So just as a organically as a consulting firm, we just started spending more and more time on board governance because ultimately governance is everything.
Yes.
And so that's how it started. And then we've just been building it over time. And so now, a quick stat. So last year in 2024, between board retreats and board trainings, we did 5 to 6 per month in 2024.
That is outstanding on a lot of levels because that means you are helping so many organizations. And I think you absolutely have it figured out where, we can't carry through this plan if everybody's not on board with it.
Right. Right.
And I'm going to also add the caveat too. It may not be necessarily a toxic board member. There might be people that get elected on that board and they're not really sure what to do.
Oh,
So
totally.
that is probably massively helpful too.
100%, right? No one has provided training. There was little to no onboarding. They're there and they're trying to navigate. And what we have found is that first year of board service is make or break,
Yes,
right? And you, how many boards have you been, Catherine? How many
a
boards have
lot.
you been on?
I kind of lost track.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right,
There was a
right.
time where I was on at four at the same time. I think that was
Okay.
my
Don't
top.
do that. Don't do that.
But yeah, don't, and that was just summer. I was rolling off one, and I was like, oh, I want to get on another one. So that another one kind of ramped up, but it was like a couple of months there that were pretty rough.
Right.
But the opportunity comes up, and if you have a passion for it, and I can lead into exactly what you do. You have a passion for it, so you get on there, and then immediately you're like, well, immediately you know if it's going to be make or break. It's like, am I going to be a fit here or not?
Right.
There was one board that I did not complete the 3-year term because I was like, I don't feel like I'm making an impact, or I don't like the way this is being run. It just didn't feel right. And if other people do, that's great. It just wasn't my board to be on.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
but I couldn't tell you how many. Probably between because those four I was on at least two of them a long time. But between if you start adding in committees too, a lot.
A lot, right?
But I love it. It's such great work.
It's meaningful work. And so all, this growth of the board training and board retreats and, just strategic board governance council that we've just, again, like organically has been growing year over year. So last year we had several corporate clients, and they partnered with us to come in and train their executives on how to be an effective nonprofit board member.
I love it.
And how does this tie into your leadership development in the company? Right? And so there's four things that we tell someone before they join a board. The first is find something that aligns with your passion, right? Like,
Yes.
is there a cause or a community that you care about? I've had many people in my life pass away from cancer. So Pelotonia is deeply meaningful to me, right? So, what is that cause that matters to you? Or sometimes it isn't a specific cause like cancer. Sometimes it's a community. Like, the work that I did on the south side of Columbus with, dear colleagues and friends who cared about the south side of Columbus. So
Exactly.
first, what's the passion? Is it a cause or a community? The second is, you know, be honest with yourself on the time and money you have to give.
Yes.
You being on four boards, you're like, oh my
Yeah, that's what I was
God,
like. That was a
too
little
much
rough.
time.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, yeah, right. And so having an honest conversation with yourself and, your partner or spouse or family or whomever about what time commitment can you donate and how much money can you donate?
Correct.
And being really honest with that so that you can ensure that you are aligning with the type of nonprofit and what they need. If you don't have a lot of time to give, don't join a startup nonprofit, right?
Yes.
You might want a nonprofit that's much more highly established. So passion, be honest with your time and resources. That's number two. Number three then is, okay, what are your skills and expertise? You've got marketing expertise, or someone might be an IT professional or an attorney or whatever it is. So when you are clear on the expertise that you have, then as you're searching for nonprofits, so say, oh, so cancer is my passion. I have this much time to give. Ooh, I want to join, this cancer related board. But if my skill is an attorney and they already have 3 attorneys, then it's not a good fit.
Correct.
So you have to make sure that your expertise aligns with the need that nonprofit has. So then the fourth one is thinking about your employer. What is your professional development plan with your company or whomever your employer is? What is your employer's strategic priorities? If your employer is passionate about affordable housing,
Hmm.
but you're passionate about cancer, if you join that cancer related nonprofit, is that a problem with your employer? And not that an employer would say no, but
Right, right. But
here's the thing,
say the
Kathy.
company's mission is X
Right.
and you're,
We know, right? If you work for ABC Company and you join that board, that nonprofit is going to hope and expect that there's going to get a gift from ABC Company.
correct.
If ABC Company is only investing philanthropically in early learning, they're not going to make a gift to the environmental nonprofit or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Right. So if you can align all four things, your passion, be honest with your time and resources, and be honest with the skills you have, and does that fit? And then is this all in alignment with your personal leadership development and growth, your company's priorities? Then that's when the magic happens. If you only get two or of those four, it can sometimes be bumpy. So that's the advice that we give, especially
Mm-hmm.
corporate leaders.
Yes.
And then we do training on, okay, then what is nonprofit board governance? How is it different from corporate governance? What are the roles, responsibilities, legal duties? What do I need to know? So we've been doing more and more of that training. And so super excited to announce here in another month, we are rolling out a new line of business called board building.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
and
How
the
great.
and we've got a website now that we're building called buildingabetterboard.com. So Catherine, you can go on there after our interview.
Oh, I'll
Um,
have a link. I'll have a link to that. And I would
yeah,
love people to be able to, reach out to you, based on this conversation, because clearly you know your stuff.
yeah,
And I think it would benefit a lot of those thousands of boards,
yeah,
communities out there that have boards, that have people. So yes, so that information will be available in the notes to the podcast. So
yeah,
absolutely. I'm
yeah,
just being blown away just by the knowledge you're kind of laying. Well, a lot of it is,
yeah.
um, I just kind of learned through experience, but it would have been great to
On the
have
job
done.
training, right? Right.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And just the value that people can bring is just so important too, because some people might not think, oh, I don't know if, I don't have enough money to give, if you will. Well, you know what? They need time too. They need people to have, actually show up, give their suggestions, their thoughts, their help to help them with things. So there's so many different ways. And again, I love that you said that you have to pick, well, no, you don't have to, but you should pick something that you're really passionate about, because that really does start tapping into your right brain space, which is what we like to talk about too, because you
Yes.
might have a job, regular job, making money, doing great, but if there's something out there that you feel like you're still missing, that's a little bit of your right brain talking to you, saying, you know what, hey, you've been neglecting me, and I would like you to do something that is passionate, that we really feel,
Right.
in our heart rather than in our head. So
Right.
with
Because
that, I'm going to oh, go ahead.
well, no, but you know the power of creativity, right?
Yes, yes.
Can I give you one more quick story about
Oh,
that?
please.
So it was an arts nonprofit, and they just got a new board member who is the CFO of a really big company in town. And typically, CFOs are plopped on the finance committee
Yes.
or they become the board treasurer, right? So we went to meet with the new CFO. We go into the meeting, and of course, we're thinking finance committee and treasurer. And we asked the question, what brings you to the table? Meaning, what about this arts organization, and it was a performing arts organization, is meaningful to you? And I'll never forget it. She said, I'm so glad you asked. She said, I love classical music. And she went on and on and on about how much she loved classical music. And then she said, please don't ask me to sit on the finance committee.
Perfect.
And I was like, oh no. We weren't going to do that.
Pivot.
Right, right. And it was like, oh, I know you love this question too. Like, tell me more. And she said, I want to sit on the artistic committee.
Oh, I love it.
And she's like, I do finance all day, all goddamn day. Right.
Yes.
Right. Like to your, I know, Catherine, you believe in that power of creativity. She wanted to use the other side of her brain.
I love it.
She wanted to know how the music was made. And she was a deeply engaged board member then. And then, of course, when it came time for the audit or the budget, did she lend her expertise? Of course she did. But we didn't pigeonhole her. And, it allowed her to tap into the side, right? The other side of her brain,
Yes.
and to think about music and not just debits and credits, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, usually for me, I was usually thrown immediately on the marketing committee.
Right.
And because that I have a big background in that. And at first I was like, I will do it, but can you think about my replacement?
Yeah.
soon, because I would like experience in other things, and I do it all the time, and I will still chime in. So don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah, to have that break is kind of nice, to
Oh,
just see how else you can contribute too, because otherwise you're just doing the same thing. It's like you're working almost,
and
you
that's
know?
what, and that's exactly, she's like, I do this all day. When I finally come to the board meeting or to the committee meeting, I don't want to do what I just did for the last 10 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to segue in
Yeah.
to my next question, because I now am super curious. That one, you were young and it was summer vacation, for example, and you had no responsibility. What were some of the fun things that you did?
Yeah. So two things. I love to play dress up. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, so my neighbor Holly and the girl across the street, Jenny, we would just talk about creativity. Like we would always do these little imaginary things and play dress up. And I was born in 1971, right? So growing up in the 70s, there was also just a lot of free play time, right?
Oh, yes.
We didn't have structured play. We had a pool in the backyard, so we would swim, we would bike ride, we'd go to parks. My parents, my family. I have four. I'm the youngest of five. I have four older brothers.
Oh, my
My
goodness.
Yeah. So a lot of chaos.
Yes.
But my brothers were hikers and fishermen, and my dad's side of the family, they were farmers prior to my dad's generation. So we spent time outdoors. We summer vacations were at state parks, like just being outside, playing, and picnics. It just was very much how I grew up. And so I loved when I think back on my childhood about all that free play.
Yeah.
And so when I had kids, and, life is much more structured now, but like in summertime, when I would sign my kids up for camps, I was constantly doing like outdoor nature camps, right?
Hmm.
Because that's what I had that ability to just be outdoors as a kid.
Yeah. It's very, I don't know, it lifts my heart a lot when I see kids just racing around on bikes in the
Oh,
neighborhood or
totally.
at the pool or something like that. It's like, yeah, that's what you should be doing, not necessarily in front of a screen, or, sitting
Right.
home alone, or like you said, it being, overscheduled or things like that. That freedom is so, and just when you were describing it, I just immediately felt so free for a minute there.
Right. Right. Yeah, and you talk about the other side of the brain. That's part of adolescent childhood development too, is that side of their brain and learning some independence. I remember, the first time my son and his friend rode their bike to the pool by
Yes,
themselves,
big
right?
day.
Like those are really important developmental milestones
Absolutely.
for children and adolescents as they grow. And I think that the time area that you and I grew up in, there was just so much more of that.
Yeah.
And
What
now,
is,
right, kids are on
what is,
travel soccer teams, and right, so now things are just like so structured.
with
Yeah.
rules and schedules and things
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Right. Right.
What's the one thing that you think you took from childhood like that that you've kind of kept sacred as you've grown, do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh, it is my absolute love of being out of doors.
Oh, lovely.
I gain energy from being in nature. Um, my preferred way to exercise is outside versus in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
Go for a 3 mile walk or 3 miles on a treadmill. I'm going
Yes.
for a 3 mile walk. Like,
Yes.
so I still, and what's interesting, Catherine, is I don't think I fully understood how much I cherished nature until COVID,
Yeah.
when, I'm an extrovert, and suddenly we were in this isolation mode
Yep.
and social distancing and separation from family and my team and my colleagues at Mollard Consulting. We were, all working remotely, and I found myself craving being, kayaking, hiking, walking. And when I got out into nature during those acute time in 2020, I got energized. And then I
Mm,
realized, as an extrovert, I don't have to necessarily have people helping me get energy. It is experiencing the energy that is around us in trees.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I was able to fill my cup up by hiking and kayaking and walking and being, campfires. And um, that was a whole new level of awareness for me of, oh, I really need this.
That's really, really cool.
Mhm.
That's really cool. And that also bleeds into my third question is what do you do to unplug? So I'm guessing it's a lot of outdoor things.
It is. I have become an avid hiker. And so this summer and this fall, I've got two big hikes, Catherine. I'm so excited. So in July, I am hiking the Tour de Mont Blanc.
What is that?
And so in the Alps in Europe. So I start in France and I'll
Oh
hike
my
over to
gosh.
Italy and then back to Switzerland and then back to France.
I'm so jealous of that. How long
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah. So we are going to take 8 days, but we're circumnavigating Mont Blanc. So we're not going to summit Mont Blanc. We're just going to hike in this loop around it.
I'm gonna have to totally
And
look into this. This sounds like the coolest thing ever.
yeah, so I'm doing that in July with some dear friends of mine and a mountain guide, and we'll experience the Alps. And then in October, I'm going to hike on my birthday by myself. So um, this hike I'm doing in July is with dear friends. But I have also, as I age, found that time alone in
Mm,
nature
yes.
is also really important for reflection and stress management. So on my birthday in October, I'm going to hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim by myself.
That I did not realize you were just, these long distance hikes was your thing. That is so, so cool.
Yeah.
So
So
cool.
North Rim to South Rim. So two big hikes coming up. And, for those folks who are listening to the podcast, like, right now in 2025, these are challenging. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty
Yeah.
and there's a lot of stress. And, you all the time, Catherine, talk about tapping into the creativity, but also just tapping into time alone
Yes.
and tapping into the energy that we can derive from being in nature helps us stay in balance, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm going to add onto that too because there are some issues too with people kind of feeling lonely and things like that too. And I want people to really kind of rethink that a little bit. Is it loneliness or are you just a little bored?
Mhm.
Or are you, or are you relying too much on other people to stimulate you? Because there is something to be said. Because, like, for me, I treasure so much just like in my little reading nook, first thing in the morning, coffee, my book,
Yeah.
and just that peace. So I'm doing something. I don't necessarily feel alone, although the house is empty. Or sitting outside. I can't wait to set up my whole setup outside so
Yeah.
that I can have the birds in the background as I drink my coffee. And it's just like just that connecting with nature is so precious. And you don't worry about, your thoughts or music or necessarily anything. That can also come into it
Oh,
if that's what you feel is what needs to be inserted in order for you to have
yeah.
that moment with yourself, which is so very important just to kind of get a look a little internally too, because we are
Mhm.
so triggered by things on the outside, or especially for women, we want to help others, or we feel like we need
Oh,
to have,
giving, giving,
this
giving.
list of, what's for dinner and where's the laundry what's a laundry status, and
Yeah.
it goes on and on and on. Just imagine just shutting that off. It is
Yeah.
such a gift to yourself to do that.
When you mentioned music, so again, for the listeners, do not put earbuds in, right? Do not add stimulation. Of course, we all love listening to audible, books on we used to call them books on tape, and we all love
I say
music.
that still.
Right? I know, like there's no tapes anymore, but and we all love music, right? But like truly unplug.
Yes.
Don't put anything in your ears. Don't and just like listen for the birds and the frogs.
Yes.
And it can be uncomfortable at first to be quiet and to not have that stimulation, but at least I have found the more I do it, the more I crave it
Mm-hmm.
and the more I need it. So I can hike for hours without anything in my ears. And so not saying that everybody's going to do that, but um, we in our modern world 24/7 constant, our phones,
Yep.
cable news, literally don't put something in your ear and just
Well, and
be.
what's so funny too is like when people try and relax, what do they do though? Like get like those recordings of birds and the
Yeah.
wind
Right,
and
right,
the
right. Like, no,
it's,
they're
it's all
outside
I do.
doing right.
Just go outside.
Well, right. And well,
We do crave that. We need
we
that, a lot of that to just calm down
Mhm.
and to break that, all that stimulus that's coming at us, all the questions, all the problems, all the whatever it is that's just getting you going throughout the day, getting you all jazzed up. And like I said, just shutting that off is, like you said, you start to crave it, and you might have to practice that a little bit because I
we
definitely
do.
had to.
Well,
It's like, okay, I'm gonna go outside and walk, and I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna really,
I
really enjoy this.
am gonna get 10 minutes of walking.
I'm gonna listen, and it's, then your mind starts wandering. It's like, I wish I brought my music. I wonder what my phone's at.
Right.
Let that happen. Let that
Let that
happen. Then
happen. Let
finally suddenly you hear like a loud bird or something. You're like,
right.
oh, I get it now.
Yeah, like, go to a metro park and
Yes,
walk
yes.
down toward a stream, right? And I think there's something really healing about water. And, just watching a little stream go by and hearing that little ripple of the water over rocks, is so calming.
It is.
And, it's just, it's for me, I have, again, as we age and over time, I just find that to be the way I try really hard to find balance.
We get smarter as we get older. I do believe with age does come wisdom, and I'll just best I can best describe it as if you are constantly running, and somebody says you no, you can't stop and rest. You got to keep running. Got to keep running. Think about just how tired you are. Your mind is the same way. It runs and runs and runs, and then what if somebody just said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we sit down for a second?"
Yeah,
And you're like, I needed that so much just to rest. It's the same thing,
right.
physically, mentally, it's that connection is there. And if I need to promote it even a little more for people to try this, it's like once you do that, you can get back into the grind so much stronger.
Oh,
So yeah, really, really honor your mental state and your how much activity your brain is going through throughout the day.
oh, for sure. And for women, especially like you said, we do.
Hmm.
There are many women who are afraid to go hiking or walking in the woods alone, even if it's just a local metro park,
I'm glad
because
you brought this up.
there
Yep.
can be fear. So I will say there's all sorts of volunteer groups out there. And so one of the volunteer groups that I hike with is called Girls Who Hike Ohio. And it's just a group of women. It's all volunteer led. They're in every corner of the state, and they have meetups. So if you're nervous about like even just going to your local metro park by yourself, there are there's hiker babes, there's all these groups of women who come together to hike. And I have met some of the most interesting people.
Oh, I bet.
And it's women only. Um, and so if that is helpful, if anyone is feeling intimidated because of a concern of safety, there are lovely, lovely groups to find someone to hike with.
Well, that has helped me. I did not know about that, and I am going to totally check it out.
Mhm.
I think that's fantastic because I do love a good walk for sure. And yeah, there are some circumstances where, not all, but some that you're just like, it would be kind of nice to have somebody with me.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Kerri, this was amazing. This was absolutely amazing, and I appreciate your time today. It has really been a gift to my listeners and actually to me too. This has been just so lovely, and I appreciate you. I will have all your information in the notes,
Awesome.
and I really think people should check into what you're doing if you need that help. Like I said, I don't think you know everything, and I
Mhm.
loved all the advice you gave as far as how we need to unplug because it's just perfect, absolutely perfect. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. This was so fun.